Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too, as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. To be a leading edge creator, the affirmation masters in my life have taught me that if I align myself with spirit, spirit becomes my shock absorber in the bumpy ruts of life. It teaches me to follow the path of least resistance. So I dissolve resistance and I embrace and increase allowance. That means I only spend time activating the reality I want to live. Whatever I give my attention to is activated within me. That's my point of attraction. So when I do that, all that I consider good flows easily into my experience. I've learned to look at things that make me feel better more often and not look at things that make me feel worse more often. And I find things to be happy about and let that be the point of attraction that dominates my vibrations. So, in other words, I go on a rampage of appreciation for everything that exists in life, which embraces, includes, incorporates, and goes beyond even the negative and the apparent level of suffering that exists all across the planet. And yet, and somehow, that's included, embraced, accepted, and to the extent that we can, transfigured with a positive attitude. Yoga talks about two wings of the yoga bird, practice and detachment, called abhyasa and vairagya. That is the way to still the fluctuations of the mind. It's only through repeated practice that you can break down the old conditions, the old habits, and you can, to a certain extent, get rid of the forces that generate a certain kind of self-slavery or stagnancy or inner decay or whatever word you want to use that defines what rules you and not in a good way. It's interesting that in yoga there's always a constant battle between separation and identification. False identification is what brings spirit and matter together and makes you relate to yourself not as living spirit, but as something bound on the material plane. True identification brings spirit together with itself so that you experience perfect self-consciousness. Consciousness experiences its own nature. False differentiation is what separates spirit from itself, and true differentiation is that which separates spirit from primal nature, as we say, Purusha from Prakriti. And you realize that the cosmos itself is derived from that source of spirit. So the positive part of yoga practice, abhyasa, is it teaches you to acquire what is to be acquired. You evolve. And vairagya is the negative part, or it teaches you to discard what is to be discarded. And then we realize that we all are, in a certain way, reflected light of consciousness. Or as they would say in yoga parlance, Atman is Brahman. The point of light within yourself, the buddhi or the intellect that's capable of perceiving the light, but it is not the light, realizes that the light is impersonal, it's not your own. And then you realize it's not only just small light within you, that light is a reflection of Brahman, the supreme, the one beyond words, the one who cannot be soiled with the tongue. And so it gives you a little glimpse. Now you just have to remember that there are as many forms of yoga as there are varieties of spiritual traditions in India. Each has its own way of saying exactly what it thinks yoga is and how it affects the potential liberation of a human being. Each tends to isolate some aspect of its tradition and proclaim it to be the authentic yoga. At bottom, yoga is a spiritual discipline that associates the techniques that lead to release and the bondage of the phenomenal order. So certainly, I suggest that you take a look at the Yoga Sutras, especially if you're a practitioner, because it deserves lavish praise as the masterwork of understanding the spiritual history of all of humankind. So dive in It's part of Swadhyaya, your ongoing study and recollection, and it'll clarify what's going on. Are you going to do it?